President Trump warned that US forces will not hesitate if American ships are threatened near Venezuela. That statement came as tensions in the Caribbean quietly reached a dangerous point. At 8:47 local time, the Caribbean Sea looked calm. Flat water, clear skies, no civilian traffic in sight. About 70 nautical miles off the Venezuelan coast, the US Coast Guard cutter Stone was moving on a steady course through international waters at 18 knots. No escort, no fighter cover, just one law enforcement ship doing its job. Then the radar picture changed. 3 fast-moving contacts appeared from the south. Not fishing boats, not cargo ships, military hulls, dark silhouettes cutting straight towards Stone's patrol route. The distance closed fast, 25 miles, then 20. Their heading never changed. Instead of slowing down, the Venezuelan vessels angled directly toward the cutter. This was not a check, this was a challenge. Inside Stone, alarms sounded, radar screens tightened. The bridge confirmed visual contact. The cutter broadcast clear warnings on open maritime channels, stating its identity and legal position in international waters. There was no reply. The gap shrank to 12 miles. Speed readings climbed. The approach was deliberate and aggressive. Every officer on watch understood the same thing at the same time. This situation was moving from routine patrol to real danger. This was not an accident. This was pressure, a signal sent in steel and engines. The Venezuelan commanders believed they were forcing a lone cutter to back down. What they did not realize yet was that they were testing the wrong response. If you want to follow this confrontation step by step as it unfolds, make sure you subscribe. What happened next changed the balance in minutes. What happened out there was not random, and it was not emotional. It was calculated. The location matters first. That stretch of water, about 70 nautical miles off Venezuela, sits along one of the busiest drug transit corridors in the Caribbean. Fast boats move through it at night. Support vessels wait offshore. For years, that zone has quietly fed criminal networks, moving cocaine north towards Central America and the southern US border. Every radar in the region watches it closely, day and night. Stone was not there by chance. In the days leading up to this moment, the cutter had helped disrupt several smuggling runs. Engines seized, loads confiscated, crews detained. Each interception cut into money, influence, and control. For law enforcement, it was a success. For people benefiting from those routes, it was a direct threat. That explains the response. Venezuela did not send aircraft or declare a blockade. That would have crossed a clear line. Instead, it used armed patrol vessels, just enough force to apply pressure, just enough to test limits. This is what modern gray zone conflict looks like. No war declaration, no missiles fired, just steel hulls, closing distance, daring the other side to blink first. For the sailors aboard Stone, this was not about strategy or politics. It was personal and immediate. They were not on a warship, they were on a cutter built for law enforcement. Their job was to follow the law, stay professional, and go home safe. But when armed ships approach at high speed and ignore warnings, intent becomes clear very quickly. This is where moments like this become dangerous, not because someone plans a war, but because miscalculation lives in seconds. A wrong turn, a warning shot too close, a crew under stress making a split decision. And once that line is crossed, there is no pause button. That is why what happens next matters far beyond one cutter and 3 patrol boats. It shows how fast routine operations can turn into international crises and how quickly power can shift when backup enters the picture. At 8:53 local time, a sharp alert tone sounded inside Stone. On the radar screen, 3 contacts shifted color. Speed numbers climbed. The distance dropped below 15 nautical miles. Bearings stayed steady, no course change. That meant intent. A second warning was broadcast on an open maritime channel. Calm voice, clear message. US Coast Guard cutter operating in international waters. No response came back. Moments later, visual contact confirmed it. Gray military hulls cutting hard through the water, bow waves growing wider as speed pushed past 25 knots. This was not an inspection, this was pressure. At 9-1, Stone changed posture. Hatches secured. Damage control teams ready. Gun crews manned stations but held fire. The cutter stayed disciplined, holding course and speed. Then it happened. At 9-7, a bright flash hit the water ahead of the bow. A warning shot. A tall column of spray rose into the air, close enough to feel, far enough to send a message. No one needed orders to understand what it meant. Stone did not fire back. That decision mattered. The report moved up the chain fast. Coordinates, vessel count, aggressive behavior. Miles away, USS Gravely received the alert and turned toward the scene at full speed. Back on Stone, the Venezuelan vessels kept closing, 10 miles, then 8. The margin for error shrank with every second. This is where opinions split. If you think Venezuela was right to push back, press 1" the comments. If you think they crossed a dangerous line challenging a US cutter, press 9. And subscribe, because the next phase was already moving toward them. The first response was over. The escalation was locked in. By 9:12 local time, the sea no longer felt empty. The water stayed calm, almost unreal, but the tension was heavy and constant. On Stone's bridge, every movement was tracked in silence. The 3 Venezuelan vessels no longer rushed straight in, but they did not back away either. This was the most dangerous phase of any naval encounter. Close enough to act, far enough to deny intent. Radar returns pulsed steadily. Operators adjusted settings, watching for even the smallest change. In close encounters like this, a turn of just a few degrees can change everything. Stone held course. Speed steady, no sudden moves. Out here, hesitation looks like weakness, and aggression invites disaster. Then, the Venezuelan ships shifted again. One edged closer along Stone's port side. Another widened to starboard. Slow, measured, deliberate. It was not random movement. It was positioning. From above, it might have looked calm. From the bridge, it felt like pressure tightening 1" at a time. No sound but engines and waves. No shouting. No panic. At 9:18, another round splashed into the water, farther out than before, not aimed to hit, not careless. A reminder shot, a signal saying the choice to escalate was still on the table. Inside Stone, fatigue began to show. Crew members had been awake for hours. Eyes stayed locked on screens. Hands stayed ready on rails and consoles. Stress builds quietly, and in moments like this, it becomes as dangerous as steel. Then the balance changed. At 9:21, a new contact appeared on radar to the north. Fast, large, a different signature. The bridge confirmed it seconds later. USS Gravely was closing at high speed. Gravely did not need to fire or issue threats. Its presence alone rewrote the situation. Radar energy filled the air. Helicopter crews prepared topside. The tactical picture was no longer equal. The Venezuelan vessels reacted almost immediately. Spacing widened, speed dropped. One ship adjusted course slightly away. Small moves, but unmistakable signals. This was escalation without explosions, power applied without contact, and it was working. So now the moment turns to you. If you believe Venezuela pushed too far and misread US resolve, press 9" the comments. If you think challenging a lone cutter was justified, press 1. At that moment, most people assumed the standoff was about to cool down. 3 patrol vessels easing off. A US destroyer arriving. Balance restored. On the surface, it looked like the crisis was ending. It was not. What no one on Stone knew yet was that the situation had already shifted in a quieter, more dangerous way. The Venezuelan vessels were no longer acting as a group. Their movements were no longer mirrored. One ship held back. Another stayed just inside visual range. The third drifted wide, almost casually, as if disengaging. On the radar, the pattern looked messy. But messy patterns can hide intent. The watch officer noticed it first. One contact flickered, then stabilized. Same speed, same heading, different spacing, not retreating, not advancing, waiting. Out here, waiting can be a tactic. Stone maintained discipline. No pursuit, no aggressive turn. The cutter stayed on its original course, steady and predictable. That choice mattered, because sudden movement now could be read the wrong way by either side. Above the water, a helicopter lifted off from Gravely. Its blades cut through the air, loud and unmistakable. To anyone watching, that sound carried a clear message. The US was no longer reacting. It was shaping the space. Only then did the Venezuelan commanders realize something critical. This encounter was no longer between patrol ships and a cutter. It was now happening under the shadow of a full naval response. Every move was being tracked, every signal recorded. The wide vessel slowed further. The closest one stopped edging inward. The formation loosened, not by accident, but by decision. What looked like hesitation was actually calculation catching up with reality. The twist was not a sudden strike or hidden weapon. It was restraint backed by power. The kind that leaves no dramatic explosion, but forces a choice. And that choice was coming fast. By 9:27 local time, the standoff reached its breaking point. Not with an explosion, but with silence. The kind that feels heavier than noise. On Stone, no one spoke. Every eye stayed forward. Every sound mattered. Above the cutter, the helicopter from Gravely held position. Its shadow crossed the deck, slow and steady. The rhythmic thump of the rotors echoed across the water. For the crew below, it was reassurance. For the Venezuelan vessels, it was a warning that could not be ignored. On the radar screens, the picture sharpened. Gravely's presence changed the geometry of the encounter. Lines of movement that once felt aggressive now looked exposed. Angles that seemed safe a minute earlier no longer were. A radio call cut through the tension. Short, direct, calm. Gravely identified itself and issued a clear instruction. This was not a threat. It was a statement of control. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the closest Venezuelan vessel slowed. Its bow wake faded. Another ship adjusted course slightly away. Not a full retreat, just enough to signal compliance. The third followed seconds later. The arc broke. The pressure released. On Stone, shoulders dropped. Not in relief, but in awareness. This had come close. Too close. One wrong move earlier, one misread signal, and this moment could have looked very different. The helicopter stayed overhead as the distance increased. 5 miles, 7, 10. The danger did not vanish, but it moved away. This was the climax without fire, control without destruction. A reminder that modern confrontations are often decided before the first shot ever lands. And this is where opinions divide. If you believe the US response prevented a serious escalation and sent the right message, press 9 inches the comments. If you think Venezuela had the right to challenge and test limits near its coast, press 1. Subscribe to stay with us, because the aftermath of this encounter carried consequences far beyond this stretch of sea. The confrontation was ending, but the ripple effects were just beginning. By 9:45 local time, the sea had returned to calm. Venezuelan vessels were beyond visual range, heading back toward their coast. No chase followed, no final warning shots. The encounter ended quietly and under control. Stone remained on station. Systems were checked, communications restored, and reports sent up the chain. There was no damage and no injured crew. On paper, it looked routine. No one aboard believed it would stay that way. Within hours, the incident reached senior leadership. Radar tracks and recorded radio calls told a clear story. There was no confusion about who closed distance first or applied pressure in international waters. The response came quickly, but quietly. U.S. Coast Guard cutters near Venezuela would no longer patrol alone. Coordination with the Navy increased. Escort procedures changed. No press statement was needed. The message was written into future operations. For Venezuela, the signal was clear. The test did not force retreat. It triggered reinforcement. Gray zone tactics met calm control backed by strength. For Stone's crew, the impact was personal. They returned to watch knowing how thin the margin had been and how restraint kept the situation from crossing a line. This was not a battle, it was a warning without noise. If you believe moments like this make future Caribbean clashes more likely, press 9. If you think firm control prevented a crisis, press 1. Subscribe to stay with us because this was not an ending, it was a test.